Welcome to Get Real with Jack and Cindy, where the stories aren't polished and the advice isn't trendy. We talk houses, markets, and the life that happens in between. The ways, the screw-ups, and everything unseen.
Is all luxury created equal? That is a very good question we're going to tackle this episode. Welcome to Get Real with Jack and Cindy. I'm Cindy Morrison.
And I'm Jack Wallace. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting thing. We keep hearing, there's TV shows, there's all this like emphasis on luxury. And, we do at Chenoweth & Cohen in Tulsa, we have a membership with the Luxury Board of Regents, which is a national, international.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the Luxury Board of Regents of the world. Isn't it?
And it's a really big deal. I mean, and there's only one company that's selected for each market, and you have to be invited. And so we're really, it's a great thing to have that, and it gives you not only the materials that you get an understanding and education that comes along with that, but you're also a part of a referral network with the best people in the country. In fact, I had clients here that recently relocated to Scottsdale, and I'd been at a convention for Regions and met the number one luxury person in Scottsdale, and they immediately were able to use this person and didn't have to figure out who, and got them all connected. And it was just, that is the kind of beauty of that network. And it works both ways. So if you have buyers or sellers here, the network is also, you get referrals coming in, and that's, we used to kind of joke about that. Like, there just weren't a lot of people coming from those luxury markets to Tulsa, but that's changing.
Definitely. And we have such an affordability here that when people from California, let's say, look at what they can buy for $1.5 million here in Tulsa, very different than the Cracker Box they can get there for $1.5 million.
And maintain a quality of life. I mean,
you can join the country club. You can have a ranch if you want. You can have a lake house. You can, all the things
that you couldn't probably afford because of the cost of living in another city. So yeah, especially for people in our age bracket, I think that could be really appealing. Maybe wanting a little bit slower life, but still have great restaurants and art and museums and all the things that come along with our city. But at the same time, if you can cash out, there's also kind of we're a little bit off subject, but there's a misnomer that people sell like a $10 million house in California and they're going to come to Tulsa and buy a $10 million house. That's not really what usually happens. What happens usually is they sell their big house in California or Texas or wherever that market is, and they come here and buy a nice house here, but they buy something the equivalent of like $1 million, $1.5 million, and then that money goes into other investments or into retirement. Yeah, so it's kind of like cashing in on that nest egg, and be able to come here. And for some people, if that's a $500,000, like if you can sell your house for it doesn't have to be a $10 million sell, but if you could sell your house for $500,000 profit in California, and that's tax-free because of the tax advantage, and then come to Tulsa and put the money there and keep that $500 tax-free, that can be a really big deal at that phase of your life, any phase of your life.
And one thing I want to wrap up about before we go into what
we originally decided to talk about, which we never stay on subject.
We're off topic, shocking. With our Luxury Board of Regents, it's really great. Not only do we have the Luxury Board of Regents of the world that we can refer, network with, get ideas from, but here locally at Chenoweth & Cohen, they're our top luxury agents, and we actually tour each other's properties every other week. And we only go to a property once, but once somebody has a new property come on, then we'll go tour it. And we give feedback to each other if there's some suggestions we have. But also, we walk in there, you never know when, for whatever reason, you didn't notice it on MLS, and you walk in and go, oh my gosh, I have the perfit client for this. Yeah. And sometimes we've sold within our group.
Sometimes it goes before it's on MLS, which that happens a lot too. But then the other thing that's interesting is, it is a commitment from our agents, and they take it seriously. But like this last tour, we had quite a few people on the tour in varying areas. So
we went all the way from Bixby, basically North Dallas, to actually my luxury property at Lake Skytook, so think of Kansas, and then to Midtown.
it really was. It was kind of being, but everybody respects that you want that whenever it's your client and their house. You want that input because we're looking at whether the pricing structure looks right, whether there's things that could be improved. I mean, it's more eyes of on the property to see what needs to happen because
Yes.
luxury is a wonderful thing, but it is a smaller demographic.
Yes.
Your buyers, you have a much smaller buyer pool, and so it's a little bit different how you approach selling it compared to a more cookie cutter house. But let's talk about, I think the biggest misnomer and what drives me crazy, and I'm doing a Facebook series right now called Quiet Luxury, and it's really about like everybody thinks of luxury as over a certain amount of money. And that's like the demarcation of whether it's luxury or not. Now, that is true because when you look at like what you consider a luxury property as far as like what the statistical data would be, it would be defined by, in Oklahoma, I think it's over 500.
It's over half a million, yes.
And then in other markets, it's going to be much higher. Like it's based kind of on the property value averages. It is interesting though, because to me, I think the 500 mark is becoming a little bit
more
shady
average
in that respect because unfortunately for a lot of buyers that's becoming a more average price point in many ways. So we'll see how that holds up. But I think that's a real mistake. And I think that's really something we should use for internal metrics. That was the word I was looking for, metrics. I don't have Claude in front of me, so my brain had to use my own brain. No, the metric of the price, but I think that is really a problem because, first of all, I've always said I want to have wonderful homes to sell of all price ranges, but of high quality.
Absolutely.
And I believe you can have a $100,000 condominium that is very clean, very well maintained, nicely upgraded, that is luxurious for a buyer that can afford that. And so I think it's a real misnomer to get too caught up in luxury is only about price. Now, the other thing I think we have to get into is just because a property is a certain price, also people have a tendency to think that there's a certain standard that it will always live up to because of that price.
If it's $1 million, it should be this mansion that's, perfectly manicured with a beautiful, inside and everything updated. The fact is, in Midtown, because of, and I'm just using that as an example, maybe where it's located and the homes around it,
right.
But it's been in disrepair and it's been neglected for decades.
Right.
Yes, it is still worth a lot of money, but you're also going to put a lot of money into it.
Right, and that's the trade-off factor, right, that you get into. But I also think that it's like, to me, I want something that I want it tricked out. I want it clean and nice, and I want it to have the features that I want. Like, I would rather compromise on the perfect lot and the perfect neighborhood and like, for me, I can only afford so much, and so I'm more interested. It's kind of like, I always think of it like cars. Some people really care about the outside of a car. Like that's the most important thing. To me, it's nice the inside of the car because I'm in the car.
That's where we live.
I'm in the car, so I want it to be nice.
And that is our second office.
Right. So to me, it's like you can have a beautiful Rolls Royce that has just been, the inside has just been not taken care of at all, but it's shiny as hell on the outside, right?
Right.
So I think that's where you have to get into that gap and figure out. But I think there's a couple of things that we need to clear up because I do think there's a tendency for buyers who have not bought in a while. When they hear $1 million, their immediate thought is I can get whatever I want and it's going to be pristine.
Right.
And that may be true in certain areas, in certain price point areas, but that does not necessarily go together.
And you also have to remember, if you have, let's say you live in an area where the average price is $1 million, but you've neglected your home, or it was your mom's and now it's become an estate. When you're looking at pricing it, if it's in disrepair, yes, there may be a price per square foot of the houses that are the same size as yours, same amount of bedrooms, but you begin to discount the price for disrepair,
Oh,
just like you would for an older home. If all the kitchens and bathrooms have been blown out and it's amazing, it starts to increase over maybe what the square footage is in that neighborhood.
I think that's really important, Cindy, and I think that really one of the things that people miss out on that is the expectation level rises in those areas. So if you have a house that is severely below average, and those people are going to buy that house in that neighborhood, they are going to spend more money to do that kitchen than somebody's doing a kitchen in another neighborhood with lesser value homes.
Yes.
The standard raises that price point that will cost them to get that house to the standard of the neighborhood. So it's very interesting because it's almost, if you were in a market where everybody just wants to be in a certain neighborhood and they'll just deal with it, which that happens sometimes.
Sure.
That's not where we are. I don't know of any market right now that's really the case in our market. But in general, you have to think if you live in a great, or if, let's say you have a parent who passed away. This is a big one. You have a parent who passed away who lived in an incredible home, but in their last 20 or 30 years, they didn't do one thing to it, which that happens a lot.
Absolutely.
So then people get that, they inherit that house, and in their mind, because it's in that neighborhood and they grew up in this incredible house, that it's worth the same amount every other house in that neighborhood is worth.
Right.
But all those other houses have been meticulously updated. In fact, It's funny, when I worked for Charles, there were 2 or 3 houses in the Utica Square area that over a 5-year period of me being there, we counted they had 3 granite kitchens installed in each house, because each person who moved in wanted their own thing for their kitchen. I mean, so it's that is kind of those people's hobby in a way, because they're willing to pay for it, but they want their home to be amazing and incredible. So I think that's a really big one. So sometimes the expectation level of that seller, especially if it's somebody who has inherited a luxury property, we have to really be honest and go back and forth, which is also why now we live in a very great age of lots of information. And so we have a lot of information that we can pull and show. This is what they're getting over here, but look at this.
And that's the thing with Zillow, Realtor.com. A lot of these, they're just going on AI numbers. A person hasn't actually walked in there to see if the kitchen's been updated. I just looked at a home today with a client. Amazing property, amazing location, an estate. Clearly the estate had not been taken care of, but the bones were there. So yes, it was a luxury listing, luxury showing. The question is where you price it and how much is going to have to go into it. Can it then turn around and be sold for the amount of money you would put in? Great bones, great property, great location, but how much are you going to spend? Because if you go too overboard, then you're upside down in the house.
Right.
And you better hope that's your lifetime home.
and everybody always thinks it's going to be their lifetime home. And that's one of the...
Always.
That's and then a year later you get the call, hey... No, but I think this is where you get into that idea too. I keep saying this to people, and that's information without analysis is just noise. And so...
I love that. Say that again.
Information without analysis is just noise. So I can pull so many spreadsheets, and we have so much data and information now. I mean, and you know me, I'm a geek when it comes to all that. So I'll pull every report that's out there, and you put all that out there, but a computer can't really gauge it quite the way human can. Now, I think it's getting better because it is now able to look at images and kind of evaluate, but we all know an image of a house photograph can be really good, and then you get there in reality and it's not so great. So I don't think that even that is going to be the best way to do that. It's going to take people that know the market and know houses and know areas and know what the standards are to interpret that information and make it actually usable information.
And
And listen, it's hard because
mm-hmm.
there are a lot of neighborhoods where you can get $1.2 million or 300 for a house.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of room in between. And then you have to look back at what an appraiser, if it's not cash, then you have to look at what an appraiser is going to do, which an appraiser is going to be more like an AI, really.
Right.
I mean, they have to be a little more statistical in
mm-hmm.
their evaluation. So it puts us in an interesting position because we kind of know a little bit more what the market would pay for something, but the appraiser, we have to think in their mind too, like they've got to justify the numbers.
And how many times have you been into a home that has been remodeled beautifully? They've put in Viking appliances. They've done, everything to this home to make it a luxury home. It may not be that luxury price tag
right
that we think of. It might be, just under 500,000 in a smaller home, but I still consider that a luxury property.
And I think that is more important than almost anything we're discussing,
mm-hmm.
because I think it's ridiculous to think that the only way that you can live in luxury is if it's over a certain amount of money. I mean, like, I think also, for me, it's just me and the dogs.
Right.
So
right.
like, I don't need 15 bedrooms and a big yard to maintain and that is of no appeal to me. It just is of no appeal, but I want everything to be great, and I want my outdoor area to be amazing, and I want my, kitchen to be great. Like, I want those things, and that's difficult to find that. And I think we're starting to have more of a circle back to that.
mm-hmm.
A lot more people are aging in place also.
Yes.
And so they want a smaller, manageable place, but they want it to be like as great as possible. So to me, that's absolutely luxury.
And when you
Absolutely.
look at aging in place, I mean, if you're going to go into a luxurious assisted living, you're talking $8, $10, $12, $15,000 a month.
Yeah.
Versus living in the house where you are, if you're able to.
And let's be honest, and most of the time you're sort of living in an apartment.
mm-hmm.
I mean, and not that that's wrong, and it's a great solution for a lot of people, but for a lot of people, they don't want to do that until
or they don't
have to.
Or they don't have the money to do that.
Absolutely, but I mean,
we're living longer.
Like, think about that. Think about what you could do with $8,000 to $10,000 to your own house a month.
A month.
I mean, seriously, think of the renovation you could do.
mm-hmm.
Even to make it more accessible or just make it better,
mm-hmm.
and then have something to sell at the end, because you don't get that money back. If that they say you do, but I don't know that you do. On those,
all depends on where you go.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's an interesting, because I mean, it costs so much to do all that. So I do think that's really an amazing thing, and I think we have to be really conscious of that. And then also, this is another interesting fact that's happening now. I'm seeing this a lot, and probably you are too. Our younger buyers are not willing to do, like, I lived literally, my first house was literally on the Broken Arrow Expressway. Like, I could pretty much, I'm being very exaggerated, because it was
don't step your foot out, it might get run over.
I could hear cars, every car that ever went by on the Broken Arrow, and it was like, I think for 2 weeks I didn't sleep when I first moved in, and then I got to where I could be in Times Square in the middle of all of it and sleep like a baby, because I just got used to it. And then it became like ocean noise. That's what I always told people. But that was what I had to do, right? For my first, to get into that house,
sure.
That was like what you do. That's not the case much anymore. It seems like we've got, and that's okay, and it's not okay. Mm-hmm. I think we need to be a little bit like, you may have to start somewhere.
A starter house is a starter house.
Right.
It does not mean it's your forever house.
And it can still be quality construction.
Sure.
It can be, it doesn't have to be nasty. But anyways, you're getting that issue happening now, where they want what they grew up in when they first buy a house, and then it's already hard enough to afford even the starter homes at this point.
Sure.
So I think their expectations may have to come back a little bit, but I also think it's the parents that are a bit of the problem, because I'll take some people and the kids are like, yeah, I could live with this. And then the parents come and they go, oh, this is completely unacceptable. And
mm-hmm.
if they don't do this, this, and this, well, like, that seller is not going to do that.
That is also the father that will show up when you have the inspection to call out even things the inspector doesn't think is a big deal. It's like, oh no.
You know, and dads, you get a bad rap. You do because of that. But and I always tell
we
people,
know you're protecting your kid,
Yeah.
but sometimes, an old house, not a new house, is not a new house.
yeah,
A new house, yes, everything should be perfect, but a house that is an existing house is not a new house.
even a new house isn't really going to be perfect. I mean, like I think that's even you. There's no such thing.
But
as a
using
perfect
the
house.
example.
But it's going to be a whole lot better of a beginning point in that respect. Yeah, I will say though, like I always tell people that's kind of the great thing about being the age that I am right now is that I can be the dad for you. Like if your kid wants to look at a house and you guys want to keep your relationship, let me step in and be the dad and the realtor because that is kind of how I go about it anyways, right? I mean, we're at that age where like there are kids and we want to protect them in a way. So it's like they're kind of getting that built-in dad. Like I'm not going to let somebody buy a house that has real issues. I mean, without really fighting them on it, if
Same.
that's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, same.
But-
They're my kids' age. Like I want them to be treated the way I would want my kids.
Absolutely.
And with the
and
advice.
I like to sleep at night more than I like money in the bank. I don't know how
Yes.
people do that. I that will never be my way of doing business. So that part of it, I think, is. But I do think we've sort of raised the kids to be a little bit entitled more than what's happening right now. So I think we've got a little bit of cognitive dissonance going on right now with that.
Well, and I've seen a shift because it seems like pre-COVID, people were interested in going in and doing DIY projects. Okay, it needs new paint, it needs new carpet. I'm willing
Yeah.
to put that money into it to make it really worth what it is.
But don't you think that's because of the interest rate raise? Because now they're
Probably.
paying so much a month that they want. They used to would be like I'll
Move
pay-
in ready.
Yeah,
They want
and I don't
move-in
blame
ready.
them because they're thinking, I'm going to make one payment. I don't want credit card payments for the paint and the credit card payment for the blah, blah. Like they want it to be, if I'm going to pay that every month, that's what I want to pay.
And I see that across all age ranges.
Yeah.
They want move-in ready.
And I think sellers need to be aware of that.
Mhm.
Like this is not like it used to be. Most people don't want a fixer-upper.
Yes.
So if you have a
Unless
house
they are
that
getting a
needs it-
screaming deal.
Yeah, and that's what goes back to our initial. So back to the luxury part of this, like this is.
Oh yeah.
But this is what we're talking about. Like, you know, I don't know about you. I mean, I have known a lot of wealthy people in my life, and I've had a lot of wealthy clients in my life. But the majority of the people I sell to live like you and I live, which
Right.
is a decent way to live. I mean, you know, we're middle class, and that's great. I still sell them luxury homes. I believe that it's luxury for them to have a big closet if they want it, or to have a gourmet kitchen if they want it, or to have, but it doesn't have to be over a certain amount of money for that to be the marking point of what is luxury.
100% agree. 100%.
And not having to compromise. Now this is counterintuitive what I just said, but if you've lived a long life and you put your money where your mouth is, and now you're going to buy something and you have the money to buy it, you don't compromise on the things you really want and you know are important to you. That's luxury. To me, that's a luxury thing. The other thing that I think is luxury is if you're in a position where you can buy a house for cash, that's luxury.
Mm-hmm.
Having no payment on your house is a luxury. So a luxury and luxury blend together for me, and that may be an aging process too. You know, like I don't know, but I think we're so in tune with the TV star luxury agent, what that means, and I hate it. And I'll tell you why I hate it, because I think it makes everyone think all you care about if you sell luxury houses is you are about the money.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we have to make a living. We do. But the last thing in the world I'm worried about when I'm in a deal is my commission. I'm worried about the deal and
Right.
making sure I'm doing the right thing. And so, and you know, you also usually have worked years and years to work up to the luxury market.
Mhm.
So you're in the luxury market because you know how this works and you are ready for things, because things go sideways in those markets, and you need to have someone who knows what they're doing, because it's a
Absolutely.
unique market. Even having buyers. I've had celebrity buyers who needed to be deeded in a certain way, and I have to work with a title company to protect their identity but still get the property to go through. Like, there's very unique things when you get into that clientele that over time you just know, right? And so I think that's it isn't like you just one day, and we even tell agents this, if you're selling $200,000 houses, work your way up the ladder. Maybe start holding a house open that's 250, 300. Don't move up to $1.5 million because you're going to be underwater whenever things go wrong because it's a different set of skills.
And before we wrap up, some advice I have for agents out there. Do not ever, we are both part of the Luxury Board of Regents. We both sell luxury properties, but don't pigeonhole yourself that you only sell luxury.
Big mistake.
Because
unless you live in San Diego or Beverly Hills, I mean, maybe then. But.
Sure, but if you, Oklahoma, for example, if you pigeonhole yourself that you only sell luxury, two things are going to happen. There's always going to be a change in the economy, and you're not going to have any clients. That was the first one. Now, before I lose my thought, what was the second one?
The other thing is you sell fewer of those homes, but you make more money when you do. Because, again, it's a smaller demographic seller and a smaller demographic buyer. So, in the meantime, the 250, the 300, the 350, the 400, that is what you're ongoing. You can make that happen time after time after time.
And a bigger pool.
Yes.
So if the
economy, they move up.
Yes.
I always love when I start with a buyer at the beginning. Like, I've now done this long enough that I started with buyers who bought their first house and now they're buying their retirement home. And I've sold them 3 or 4 homes or more in that period. It's so cool to see like them getting to move up the ladder of what they want. And what's interesting too is sometimes moving up the ladder means moving down in price, moving down in square footage, because that's no longer important to them. They want a lock and leave, or they want, they don't have all the kids anymore and they live out of state. Like, there's all different things, but going through that process is so rewarding. So if you just try to start at this high-end price, it's difficult.
So let me amend what I said. Don't pigeonhole yourself into saying you only sell luxury for 3 reasons. 1, if the economy changes, you're not going to have any clients. 2, like you just mentioned, some of the lesser priced homes can be your bread and butter because there's a bigger pool. And 3, and this one's going to hurt, when you have a friend that calls you and they sold their $450,000 house with somebody else because they think you don't sell in that price range.
That breaks my heart.
Yes.
And then, I've had that happen a number of times, and they had a terrible transaction. Or they'll call me in the middle of it and say, we should have used you, but we didn't think you did this, and now this is happening. And I'm like, your agent can call me and I'll walk them through what I think they should do, but I can't help you. I can't help you legally right now because I'm not representing you and they are. Yeah, but again, but that makes me mad at myself, not at them, because I gave them the perception that I didn't care about them, that I cared about higher end property only. And so really make sure you're nurturing both sides.
Absolutely. And don't just post your luxury properties. Post your investment properties. Post your, all the properties that you have to show that you have this diversity, because I really think that's going to serve you well in the long run.
Absolutely. And then your higher-end clients also refer you other people that are not high-end clients. So, like, you don't want them to not refer you also because they think you're only that person. I mean, there's so many, but, we live in a very diversified area. You can't just, I'm sure there are a couple people that do just that. I've never really met many of them that really do it successfully. But if you get, I've seen a lot of them that have come in and tried to do that and have had to leave the business because when the economy turned, they were done.
Yep.
Yeah.
So those are our thoughts on luxury. Luxury can seem like a lot of things that it's actually not.
Absolutely. And I always think about when I worked with Charles Fadre, he used to say, I don't even buy green bananas anymore. And I love that because it's like if you're at the place in your life where you want it to be right and you don't want to have to wait to have it redone, you deserve that. And that to me is the true luxury. If you are in a place and you can go, this is what I want, and I'm not going to do it until I find it.
Goldilocks wants it just right. I like that. Goldilocks wants the right banana.
Amen.
There we go. Let's move a couple of those stories in together. Well, thank you so much for listening to us. Of course, we love having you as a part of our podcast. This is season 3, and we can thank you for that.
Amen. Amen. So we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Welcome to Get Real with Jack and Cindy, where the stories are polished and the advice isn't trendy. We talk houses, markets, and the life that happens in between. The wins, the screw-ups, and everything unseen.